What's going on, everybody? My name is CJ, aka Siege. It is 7:10. I'm tired, but we're gonna get this day going. So we did just hit 1.8k subscribers. Thank you all for that. Yeah, this video might be a little bit different. I think I did a video almost identical to this at the start of last year, just kind of like a little vlog while I was driving, doing my daily stuff for the day. On the way to the gym right now, then we got to stop by the chiropractor, maybe make one other stop. I had a little like wired lav mic and I could not find it for some reason. So apologies for all the background noise. Maybe I can like noise reduce it or something. So yeah, I'm gonna pick up whenever we have a little bit more daylight so you can see me just a little bit better. All right, we're gonna try this camera angle for a minute. I know it's not the most flattering angle. I guess kind of the core theme of this vlog video is just talking through some stuff that I think all producers should look into implementing or doing this year. At New Year's time, everybody always goes through the how did last year go, what can I do better this year, and I really just want to talk about a couple things that I don't really hear many people mentioning. Then again, I don't watch a lot of this content in general, but I guess number one for me right now is back up all your stuff, protect all your stuff. If you're in music full-time or really in any creative business full-time, if you're like me and you rely on the digital realm so much for all of your stuff and all of your work you've ever done, God forbid you lose everything in a natural disaster or get stolen, might as well have not exist or not have done those things. The biggest thing for some peace of mind over New Year's, I got an insurance policy through Music Pro Insurance. They're very reasonable. My rate was $175 for the whole year. That's like the starting bare minimum. I didn't put all my gear on there just because some stuff, if I lose like the small like sub $200 stuff, like, you know, I can just get that stuff back. And to tell you the truth, a lot of the stuff I don't even use, you know. It's like old headphones and stuff. Like, why would I put that on my insurance list? All of my high ticket items, all of my guitars, my bass, all my drum hardware. I didn't even put my drum set itself on there because it's a cheaper kit, but the stands. Also put my desktop computer and my laptop on there. But most importantly, they also insure software. So at first I was kind of like, why would I need to do that? But, you know, I got to thinking, it's like, God forbid somebody steals your computers and got everything on iLocked locally on the devices, and now you can't deauthorize them. What do you have to do? You have to just end up buying a whole nother license. So, you know, I think iLock's pretty good about giving you like one get out of jail free card per year. But I put like all my dolls on there. I put Melodyne on there, sound toys, you know, anything really over like $200 software wise got put on that list. That helped to create some peace of mind going into the year. So now I'm not super worried, especially like traveling like I've done in the past year. I wasn't super worried that I would get anything stolen, but something were to happen and I were in an accident and something got destroyed, how's that going to be taken care of? Also, I did a full PC backup with iDrive. Debated on which cloud backup service to use, and I went with them just because of the way their software works. I could have effectively cloned my entire C drive on my computer, could literally transfer everything over and it feel like my same computer minus, you know, miscellaneous files here and there. I went ahead and just did my user files and anything related to music and whatnot. The core stuff that matters, I can always reinstall stuff, but if I lose my beats or project files or, you know, videos, pictures, documents, all that sort of stuff, that's the stuff that really matters. And it was about a 4.8 or 4.9 terabyte backup, and it took about 4 days on my internet to do. Thankful that's done. Now that it's done once, it just incrementally updates daily. I already do like local backups, of course, as well. Like I said, if something happens to the local backup, can't do anything. So the next thing on my list for things that I think producers or anybody really that's in any sort of creative field, establish a good mental grounding and basis for everything while you can. Whether that belief comes from believing in a higher power like I do myself, shout out Jesus, or developing like a very mindful, strategic routine this year. Doesn't mean you can't if you believe in God. That's a big thing that a lot of people will talk about, and it's one of those things that, gosh, guess I'm just gonna have a shadow for a minute. And it's one of those things that it's really hard to quantify unless you can kind of get it down and understand it on your own. I can't stress how important that is to kind of propel yourself through the tough times, and knowing you're really working on several years ahead, so to speak, of delayed success. With that, one of my bigger things for this year, and I'm not saying this is gonna work for everybody, but for me in general, this year, I'm not overly stressing on exact particular goals. I'm more working on reaching certain inputs that result in outcomes instead of outputs. Chris Williamson had a great 5-minute mail Monday on that a while back. You can do all kinds of busy work like replying to emails and whatnot, and that's great and all, but does that move the needle on getting you where you want to be? Not saying it doesn't, but it's stuff like that it's really easy to be like, oh, well, I've done this today, I've done that today, but then at the end of the day, you look and you didn't really improve any outcomes. So instead of stressing out, oh, I want to make X amount of dollars per month, it's more going to be focused on, I'm going to do X amount of reach outs, or I'm going to do X amount of attempts at this, instead of overstressing the end result. Because I think it's easy to get in the loop of like, oh, I didn't make X amount of dollars this month. Who's to say I'm going to make that next month? Nothing's ever going to change. I'm just going to be a chud. Nothing ever happens. That's where I'm at on that this year. Not stressing particular exact numerical amounts to goals or events happening, but rather the only things I can control. I had to stop at the store and get a couple things. So to kind of finish clarifying what I was saying earlier, because I felt like I didn't really say it in the best way. This year, I'm going to be more intentional about doing the things that lead to outcomes versus doing the kind of useless tasks or things that don't lead to as many outcomes. For example, one of those things might be hiring a video editor. That'll cut down like 6 hours of general work that goes along with, editing 1 hour to 2 hours of raw footage. Potentially looking at hiring somebody in a managerial role to cover miscellaneous emails or conversations or reach outs, that sort of thing. So basically, I just want to set things up to where all the work I'm doing is meaningful, fulfilling, needle moving work. A good analogy would be like if you have somebody that's weed eating around a huge lawn, or using string trimmer, weed whacker, whatever you want to call it, doing it around a ditch, or getting around trees and steps or a front deck, doing all that work, but leaving the yard unmowed, so you've got grass that's a foot tall that hasn't been touched. You're doing all this little intricate work that, sure, it's work, but it's not actually accomplishing the main goal, which would be mowing down the whole yard. Another big thing that I'm going to be working on for myself as a producer this year that I would highly recommend for yourself is working on designing a schedule and your systems so that everything works in the way that is the most efficient possible. So what does that mean? I kind of laid it out on that phone call and kind of visioned it as like a 3-ring diagram. So for me, I laid it out as 1 ring being like social, 1 being business / finance / work, everything all in 1 ring encompassing. And then the other side would be like family / personal. You've got stuff that overlaps in between all 3 of those, but if you're only doing stuff that overlaps between personal and finance or business, and you're not integrating much social aspects from the social ring, you're going to quickly kind of burn out and feel like I'm doing this all for nothing, or maybe even get a sense of what's the point of doing this if I can't, enjoy life, work, sleep, repeat. Or you could look at it as if you do too much in the intersection point between social and business. It could be like going out every other day for quote networking, working hard for your business stuff and whatnot, but you're not doing anything of the personal aspects like, taking care of your health, working out, talk with family, anything like that. It's going to take a toll on the personal front. So for me, when I visualize that and I kind of put like suffer on each of the places where the 2 overlap but not all 3, that was just kind of a spur of the moment thing I did on the phone call. For me, it's all about finding that point that's in between all 3, and I don't think you can ever strive to have all 3 all at once. Some days it could be all one isolated circle, there might not be any intersections, but if you find more days are often in 1 or 2 intersections instead of that central balance, I think that kind of reorienting and making sure you're getting a even balance of all 3 is going to be key to more enjoyment and success. One last thing from the car here that I believe other producers should think about this year is not overstressing, just doing it for money or doing it because you have to, or doing anything because this is the shape of the industry. I would say that my beats in general have never been too industry specific, in the sense of like I don't typically chase trends. If there's an artist or a sound that pops off, I'll make a couple beats like that. I don't completely pivot all of my producing time and power to that one style, because it's just going to swing and be done in another bit of time anyways. Especially over the past year, you know, I've been doing more like pop and country instrumentals in the first place and production for people in general. So I've not been doing a ton of grinding out so-and-so type beats intentionally. You know, I'll make a beat and try to tag it the closest that it sounds like, which I often find more times than not, I'm like, this don't sound like anybody, which maybe that's a good thing for me personally. You know, it's waiting for somebody to discover and make it their own sound, so to speak. Just kind of doing more stuff just for the sake of it and having fun. Not over stressing having to do things in one way only. This isn't saying you can't focus up on one niche or kind of grind out doing something that's working for you. By all means, if you find a lane that everybody loves that you do, you know, go for it. Obviously, if you have some motion, keep going at it. Still incorporate doing it for fun or doing it for, quote, the love of the game. Alrighty, so ignoring the hair, we're gonna pick things up back here at home. So if I could give you another good idea or piece of advice to keep in mind this year as a creative or a music producer, that would totally have to be remembering and acknowledging that not all advice is good advice, and just because advice sounds good or motivates you or gets you hyped up doesn't mean it's gonna work for you. So one of the biggest things I learned in 2025 was to always keep in mind the source or where advice or tips or any help is coming from. Just because somebody's successful doesn't mean what they tell you is going to work for you, nor does it also mean I would want to apply their exact advice in my own life. And if it comes from somebody that's not quite where I want to be, let's maybe kind of look at this and take it with a grain of salt. You know, maybe take some things that work and ignore the rest. This didn't happen, but say for example, if I were to meet a world-class music producer, number ones here and there, all the money, but he lived a miserable life, and you were able to kind of infer on some things and get a better picture and reading of who the person is, some of this advice may just go out the window in general. You know, this past year I've kind of had a problem with the whole Sigma male grind set, if you're not working you're dying, that sort of line of thinking. And I would definitely say, you know, for some people they need to hear that, but for some people like myself, that doesn't do me a bit of good to hear, oh, work harder, blah blah blah. In my opinion, it's not about working harder, it's working smarter, and the end goal should be to work less or work so efficiently that the little bits you do work does more than hours and hours more of previous work. But in general, of course, you gotta work hard. And this goes also for giving advice. You know, you may be watching this being like, well, why should I listen to him? There's no reason why you should be listening to me. You can see my channel and see some of the things I've done, and I can speak on experiences, but as a human being, I don't believe I inherently are above anybody watching this or even deserve to have people listen to what I have to say, if that makes sense. So the biggest thing about advice in general is that the people that need to hear certain things are never gonna hear it, and the people that don't need to hear it are gonna end up taking it to heart way too much. That's one thing I kind of enjoyed hearing about on the Modern Wisdom podcast. For the people that need to hear, you need to work harder. Those are the type of people that's not going to really do anything for in the first place. But the people who are trying their hardest and working hard, they don't need to hear work harder, work more hours. They need to hear you're doing great. Let's work on how we can make this more effective and get better at this so that you progress, versus tie my self-worth to this amount of time worked or beats produced or the general output of everything you do. And if I could give us creatives one last point here for 2026, that would have to be, in everything you do, be yourself, be original, be unique. I just had a good example of this the other day. I'm shooting this on my phone right now. I don't like how my webcam looks and looking for ways to replace that. One thing I kind of thought about was how Nick Mira in his early days, and even till this day now, almost 10 years later in his cook-up streams, he intentionally distorts his webcam or face cam video, and that is part of his branding now, for lack of a better term. What might have started as just him cooking up in the dark with low light, making his webcam look bad, he would mess with the color settings and look green or purple or whatever, and that became kind of a meme, you know, the blue Mira phase and everything else. And now you can tell he's using a much better camera, but he's still distorting his image and making him look weird because that is part of him now. Alongside of that, definitely take chances on new things this year. Try out some stuff you've never thought about doing, and you never know what might happen. You might find a new avenue or niche that you truly enjoy and ends up getting you farther than anything else ever would in the first place. That's about all I have to say for this video. I'm wishing each and every one of you watching this a happy, blessed, productive, and most of all, enjoyable 2026. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. That'll help me out a whole lot and let YouTube know other people like yourself need to check this out. I'm gonna be trying out some new and different types of content this year, so I hope you join me for the ride and see where 2026 takes us. Thank you all for watching. My name is CJ, aka Siege. Have a good whatever time of day you're watching this, and God bless.